It only took 24 disastrous hours of ICE in airports before Donald Trump eventually gave up. And that is all he has been doing recently. Donald Trump is picking fights and then retreating as quickly as possible. The taco name was truly the best thing that we could have dubbed Donald Trump, and it has proven to be true time and time again. And the latest example comes with TSA funding, where Donald Trump said that he was going to hold it up, that he was going to block any bill, that he was going to personally prevent airports from running smoothly. And now that is no longer the case because the shutdown government is driving Donald Trump crazy as he really cannot stand to take on any more political problems. But it all begins with the truth of what has happened over the past weeks. It's where I want to start before we get into Donald Trump's wild Truth Social post last night and him ultimately admitting defeat today. And that truth comes to us from Jessica Tarlov.
I know.
So I don't know
since 2 months that they.
Oh yeah, well, I was, very openly happy that Tom Homan was sent into Minneapolis and that there was an acknowledgement, albeit quieter, on the part of the president, though Tom Homan voiced it, that the way ICE was being run was unacceptable. And what Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, and Greg Bovino were doing was out of line, and there are dead Americans as a result.
Well, that's my point, though. All three of those people are gone. Why wouldn't the Democrats just say, let's claim victory, because to fight another day, instead of doing this to the TSA agents and the traveling public?
The Senate Democrats have put forward 7 standalone bills to fund TSA, and there have been 10 bills that would have funded TSA, CISA, Coast Guard, and FEMA. There was a discharge petition in the House that the Democrats brought forward last week that the Republicans refused to sign on to. And saying that Donald Trump is the one who gave an off-ramp, John Thune went to him this weekend and said, we have a deal on this. I want this. I saw Ted Cruz is enthusiastic about it. I know Ted Cruz loves to get an airport open in case he has somewhere to go. But they were offering him, saying, we can get ICE funding done through reconciliation. We just need 51 votes for that. We have the numbers. We can reopen the airports the way that you need them to be. We can fund FEMA, CISA, Coast Guard, et cetera. And Donald Trump said, no, I want the Save America Act, which you acknowledged last week, Dana, is not going to get passed. John Thune says it's not going to get passed. And it's not, but that's not what Democrats are talking about right now. They're saying, you want to fund it, just fund it. There are bills on the floor to be able to do that. Republicans are refusing to do it. And the Save America Act is not a voter ID bill. It is a citizenship bill. The American public knows that. If you said you can show any ID when you show up to vote, people would go for that. If you say that you need to register with your passport or your birth certificate, that is not going to happen. And I've said it before, it's going to disadvantage Republican voters than Democratic voters. And none of them are illegal, in case you were going there, Jesse.
This is the true story of TSA funding. This was never a both sides. This was never, oh man, Congress is just not doing its job. The government should be ashamed. No, it's Republicans. For people who pretend to be so macho and tough and manly, they really are victims constantly, aren't they? Oh, we can't pass anything. The Democrats won't let us, except for the fact that we've suggested again and again and again that you should just fund TSA. But of course, that wouldn't allow Donald Trump to then carry out his mass voter suppression, which is what he was begging for, still hoping that he could persuade Democrats somehow into writing another blank check to ICE with this post right here. Trump wrote on Truth Social at 2 a.m. Democrats are desperate to keep illegals no matter how bad or dangerous they may be in the country. They want them to vote. That's why we are fighting so hard to neutralize ICE. We will fight them all the way and win. Fighting hard to neutralize ICE, I think that's a great idea. I think that's exactly what we should do. Go farther than neutralize, let's abolish. But what Donald Trump is upset about in that post is that he has not yet and will not see his voter suppression bill, a proof of citizenship bill in the form of the SAVE Act, get passed. And he has held America hostage in an attempt to do so. And he thought he could send his goons to airports and Democrats would just cave right away, which I don't think is the most, irrational thinking in the world. Democrats do tend to cave. But no, it just made things worse for him. Donald Trump's own personal thugs showed up at the airport and showed everyone waiting in line, this is the problem. It is with Donald Trump, which is why he was so willing to admit defeat. Senate GOP says Trump signals shift to backing DHS compromise with Democrats. Senate Republicans believe that Donald Trump is willing to accept a potential deal to fund the Department of Homeland Security following a White House meeting on Monday night. It would be a significant shift for Trump, who over the weekend repeatedly said he would not make a deal with Democrats unless they moved separately voting legislation known as the Save America Act. But Trump signaled he is open to a deal to reopen Homeland Security, even if it doesn't fully fund immigration and customs enforcement, during a 2-hour meeting at the White House Monday evening, according to GOP senators briefed on the meeting. A Senate Republican source familiar with the discussion said Trump is willing to separate funding for the enforcement and removal operation from the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill in order to get enough Democrats to support it and fully fund TSA. So no longer will Donald Trump be able to hold over the heads of every American traveling, I guess, the threat of being arrested and killed in the airport. So that's a nice touch. But what Donald Trump has done is ensured that everyone who was traveling yesterday and anyone paying attention to the news knows who is responsible and has been responsible for these massive delays. It was Donald Trump. And this also comes at a time in which airlines are preparing to cancel flights based on the spiking price of oil that doesn't look like it's going to be dropping anytime soon, because our president is an idiot who has already got us into a war that he has said cannot achieve the strategic objectives that it set out to in the first place. What a shock that is. What a shock the shit show, illegitimate, unnecessary, illegal war isn't going to be a slam dunk, that we're not going to get out of it with a bunch of wins. And maybe it was just an opportunity for Donald Trump to distract from the Epstein files for a couple of weeks, to do some heavy, heavy insider trading. By the way, 14 minutes before Donald Trump made his post yesterday, announcing that, well, quite frankly, we have such a great deal cooking, and I'm on the phone right now with Iran. I'm talking to, I believe it's Mr. Iran. It's Mr. Iran. And then, of course, that was proven to be false. But 14 minutes before that news came out, some random person bought $1.4 billion in S&P 500 futures and sold $192 million in oil futures, knowing that the market was going to spike and the price of oil was going to drop, with Donald Trump's news that everything was fine. Now, of course, everything wasn't fine, but that doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is insider trading. The point is gaming the system. So has Donald Trump accomplished that strategic objective, I should say? Yeah. Making his rich buddies richer? Of course he has. Is Netanyahu happy? Oh, of course he is. He's displaced 1 million people from southern Lebanon. And Israel is continuing to strike Iran, even with Donald Trump retreating. I talked about it this morning. Netanyahu said, oh, Donald Trump wants a peace deal? I don't care. I'm still in charge. I still get to be the president. So I'm going to bomb Iran. There will be no peace. Because what Donald Trump is saying with his fake peace deal post is at least, he thinks that if he retracts a little bit and retreats a little bit, there might be a possibility for things to settle, for the Strait of Hormuz to be opened without having to call in allies that aren't going to come to our defense. And of course, that's not happening because Donald Trump has ruined all of our relationships. Way to go, man. But Netanyahu says no to that. He says no. He says he's not even going to give Donald Trump the opportunity. He's going to drag us in further. Israel started this war. Israel forced us into this war. Israel will keep us into this war. Israel will extend this war. Because Donald Trump is that weak. Donald Trump is that weak. Retreat after retreat, collapse after collapse. Everybody can see it. On the global stage, everybody can see it. How weak Donald Trump is. So why wouldn't you take advantage of him? And why would you come to his defense? And that leaves us, more so than just with Iran, in a very scary place. If the rest of the world is taking stock, and Trump used to always say this about Biden, everything he said about Biden and Kamala Harris and Barack Obama was complete projection. He said, oh, the world sees how weak Joe Biden is. World sees how weak Joe Biden is. Oh, we're going to see more war break out. The world really sees how weak Donald Trump is. Let's be real about that one thing. Donald Trump can't get our allies to come help him. Come help him lower global costs. Of course, because it's Donald Trump's fault, and he flip-flops every day, so why would you get behind him? But the world sees his retreat. I think Lawrence O'Donnell did a great job of breaking it down, but also mocking Donald Trump's retreat right here.
And so Donald Trump enters the fourth week of his war, the most expensive war in the history of the world, as lost as he was in the first week. And when asked today who would control the crucial Strait of Hormuz shipping lanes in his imagined negotiation with Iran, Donald Trump actually said, me. Me and the Ayatollah. Quote, me and the Ayatollah. And with that, no stupider thing has ever been said about the outcome of a war by a president of the United States. Donald Trump knows that Wall Street has a phrase for his retreats on tariffs and now on war. Wall Street calls it taco. Trump always chickens out. And mindful of the reputation he has earned on Wall Street for chickening out on his own threats, including his threat to commit a war crime of bombing of Iran 2 days ago, which he retreated from today, bombing civilian targets, when Donald Trump was describing his imagined negotiations with Iran to reporters this morning. He said, quote, they called, I didn't call, they called, end quote. Such is the goofy insecurity of the man who knows he stands accused of always chickening out. They called, I didn't call, they called. His exact words. Before he became Donald Trump's pet, Senator Lindsey Graham had this thought about the person Mitch McConnell called this despicable human being.
And you know how you make America great again? Tell Donald Trump to go to hell.
Donald Trump and Lindsey Graham are not Americans. Okay, they work for Israel. I'm tired of pretending that that's not the case. Too much of our government just works for Israel. I'm also tired of that being the case. And I think the only way we fix a lot of this is making sure that that parasitic relationship ends. And anyone who supports it, I think we know why. And they do not have what it takes to be in elected office. That's where I want to end.